afternoon and welcome. It's almost sunny. Well, it is sunny at the moment for a few minutes, so we'll check that. But I hope you all had a good journey here today. And I hope you'll have time to wander around later. Today, we're really fortunate with welcoming the Rugby Community Choir, who are giving up on Sunday afternoon to sing us some beautiful songs led by Rebecca. Thank you. And also, beavering away on her laptop, Louise has brought her dongle along so that she can do this service to the Stockton and Newcastle and Scarborough who couldn't make it to the service today. And it's incredible, especially when you look at the weather, to think that just recently we have celebrated the summer solstice. Midsummer. It doesn't really feel summer at all yet. That great pagan writer that I love so much, Glennie Kindred, has this to say about this magical, vibrant time of year. In all of nature, the rampant growth period of the year has reached its peak, and the natural world is in total manifestation. The trees are full of leaf and blossom, herbs and flowers are flourishing. There begins to be an abundance of vegetables, and the fruit and grain are ripening. Everywhere there is a sense of completeness and abundance. And just recently, you may have realised there's been a terrible hoo-ha in our county because North Yorkshire County Council announced, in the way that county councils tend to announce things, that they were going to do away with apostrophes in their roads. Yeah, exactly. No, for them this was far too complex for their databases to cope with. But as I say, there was a loud protest from those of us who actually want to preserve some level of literacy, especially amongst the younger generation, who have generated a whole new vocabulary over social media. And they did have to back down and redo the St. Mary's sign with the requisite apostrophe. And this reminded me of the row there was back in December 2008, when the Daily Telegraph reported that many words from the natural world, from the words for plants and animals, food and farming, from the mysterious world of fairies and the equally mysterious world of religion, had been removed from the 2007 Oxford Junior Dictionary. We will look at some of those words later. These had been removed to allow room for words more connected with the technical world, concerning phones and computers and media, especially social media. In 2015, 28 writers wrote an open letter of protest to the publishers. They said, "We write to plead that the next edition sees the reinstatement of words cut since 2007. We base this plea on two considerations. Firstly, that nature and culture have been linked from the beginning of our history. For the first time ever, that link is in danger of becoming unravelled to the detriment of society, culture, and the natural environment." Two of the authors were Robert McCarnow and Jackie Morris, and they wrote this book as a result, which has become a very popular book in its own right. And it's not a book you slip in your back pocket. It is the most beautiful book. Did we see it? And I think we've got some new arrivals. Hello.
There, perhaps you might hold the book up over here so that we can all see it. Wonderful.
There you go. And I'm just going to read from the introduction of this book. And then again, I'll show you the picture. Once upon a time, words began to vanish from the language of children. They disappeared so quietly that at first almost no one noticed, fading away like water on stone. The words were those that children used to name the natural world around them. Acorn, adder, bluebell, bramble, conker, gone, fern, heather, kingfisher, otter, raven, willow, wren, all of them gone. The words were becoming lost, no longer vivid in children's voices, no longer alive in their stories. And beautifully, beautifully illustrated. I'll read some more from that later. Today, we will concentrate on revitalising words in great need of saving from the dusty corners of our childhoods. But first, we'll light our chalice candle. Hazel, would you like to come? We light this candle today to celebrate our Unitarian community, which is one that is rich in kind and thoughtful words and deeds, celebrating diversity and welcoming all who are seeking their own spiritual path. Thank you. And Steve, would you like to come and light the peace? Without the right words and acts of forgiveness, restorative justice and reparation, there can be no peace. These words and deeds need to be nurtured and used and adhered to for the human world to move forwards to a better future where there is peace for all and everyone has enough of what they need.
Deep peace of the running way to you. Deep peace of the running way to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentlest night to you. Moon and stars, for their evening light on you. Deep peace of the gentle light to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars, for their evening light on you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars, what is the lights of you? Deep peace of the gentle night. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars, what is the lights of you? Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you.
Now we come to our first reading, one of the poems in this book. And it's about the conker. The conker was left out of this dictionary, but as you see, conkers are incredibly, incredibly beautiful. Cabinet maker, could you craft me a conker? Oil its wood, burnish its veneer, set it glowing from within. Never, not a chance, no hope at all. King, then could you command me a conker? Compel its green spikes to grow, its white flush to thicken. Impossible, impractical, inconceivable. Engineer, surely you could design me a conker. Refine its form, mill its curves and edges. Manufacture me that magic casket. Unfeasible, unworkable, unimaginable. Realize this, said the cabinet maker, the king, and the engineer together. Conker cannot be made, however you ask it. Whatever words or tools you use, regardless of degree, only one thing can conjure conker, and that thing is tree. And now we have our second song, Man from Mama.
Manna from the mother, manna from the land. Bless the manna from the mother, bless the manna from the land. Let the sun shine bright, fall upon the sea and the rain, and the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. And the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. Man from the mother, man from the land. Bless the man from the mother, bless the man from the land. Make the sun shine and rain, fall upon the sea and the rain, and the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. And the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. Man from the mother, That's the man from the left, that's the man from the left. Make the sun shine and rain, fall on the sea and the rain, and the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. And the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. Mountains on the mountains, from the mountains, that's the mountain on the mountain, that's the mountain on the left. Make the sun shine and rain, fall upon the sea and the rain, and the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. The sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. And the sacred wonder of it all is in our hands. Is in our hands.
Spirit of life and love, Mother of all things, we speak to you with both our hearts and our minds. Help us to articulate, both to yourself and those we meet, the love and the beauty we see all around us. Help us to speak of the joy this brings. Help us to find the right words when we know that we have carelessly caused hurt or harm. And help us to be swift to forgive and slow to anger. Let us seek out those who need help and those who need comfort. Let us be able to listen to people's problems, not just with our ears, but with our hearts, and respond with compassion and love, speaking gentle words of encouragement. We are aware that the natural world is struggling, thrown completely off kilter by our chemicals and our carelessness. Help us to find ways to redress the balance so that humans and nature can live together in harmony, each and all having enough of what they need without intruding on the needs of the other. It has been proven that walking in nature helps both our physical and mental well-being. So please let us learn to treasure and honour it as the precious, beautiful, bountiful, magical, wonderful part of the world that is. Let us honour and preserve the words that modern children are told are no longer relevant to their lives. And let us teach them their true and deep meaning, returning the mystery and magic to children and adults alike. We ask this of you, the beauty and the light, as we pray for forgiveness of our trespasses on all your resources and your life. Amen. Now we come to our third song.
The green man watches, the green man watches, the green man watches, the green man watches, As winter solstice comes and goes, the green man watches, and Yuletide cheers give way to woes. The green man waits. The grass only grows, showing wonder. The spring is round the corner, and the green man waits. The green man watches. The green man waits. The green man waits. The green man waits. The wassail bowl has long been dry. The green man watches, and Bridget in her bower lie. The green man waits. Spring is round the corner, and the green man waits. Through darker days we long to see. The green man watches. The shoots and buds burst from the tree. The green man waits. Spring is round the corner, and the green man waits. The green man watches. The green man waits. The green man waits. The green man waits. We're longing for the summer when the green man dances. We're looking to the harvest when the green man sings. And fire comes through wind and rain. For spring is round the corner, and the green man waits. The green man watches. The green man watches. The green man watches. The green man watches. The green man waits.
Book. This is about one of my favourite birds, the starling. I love starlings. I know there are some people who don't, but they look after their own. And we've had flocks of starlings in our garden recently. And the young ones, it's amazing watching starlings growing, because they start off all brown and then they get speckled from their tail upwards. So you get starlings with speckled tails, or just little brown heads, and the rest of them is speckled. They're amazing birds. And if a cat gets a starling baby, then the whole world knows about it, and the cat gets bombarded, and I think they're so brave. Anyway, starling. Should green as moss be mixed with blue of steel, be mixed with gleam of gold, you'd still fall short by far of the tar-bright, oil-slick sheen and gloss of starling wing. And if you sample sneaker squeaks and car alarms and phone ringtones, you'd still come nowhere near the rooftop rip-rap street smart hip-hop of starling song. Let's shade clasp, cold clasp, pitch clasp, storm clasp, which they'd still be pale beside the in the dead of night black, cave black, head cocked, fight back gleam of starling eye. Northern lights teaching shoals of fish, teaching swarming flies, teaching clouding ink, would never learn the ghostly swirling, surging, whirling, melting murmuration of starling flock. And our third reading is about the wren. I mean, you can miss wren. You can ignore wren. It's incredible. But this poem isn't out of that book. It's written by a lovely friend of ours who sadly is no longer with us. But when she walked into a room, she would light up the whole room. She was an incredibly talented lady, Annalise Emmons Dean, Wren, from her book, Flying High. Wren, the voice. When the wren sings along, sings aloud, when the wren sings strong, sings proud, when the wren sings sweet, sings true, when the wren sings, my heart sings too. It's pleasing to know that back in 2015, people were moved enough about the complete loss of some of our most beautiful words from the Oxford Junior Dictionary that they campaigned for them to be put back in the next edition. I can't find any evidence that they were. Some of the words left out of the plant and animal category were acorn, adder, ash, bramble, buttercup, cowslip, thrush, violet, willow, and wren, and many more. From the food and farming category, they omitted allotments, beetroot, brook, cauliflower, gooseberry, parsnip, spinach, amongst others. And the fairy kingdom is now missing dwarves, elves, and goblins. And the religious world is missing abbey. We happen to have one up on the hill. Aisle. Minister. We have one at the back. Monk, nun, pew. Saint and sin. These words, seen as irrelevant to children's lives, were replaced with words like allergic, block graph. Oh, remember those graphs? During COVID, you'd watch telly and those graphs would come up and nobody understood what was going on. Blog, broadband, bullet points, chat room, cut and paste, MP3, and voicemail. It's such a sad world where words like acorn and ash are seen as not relevant to a child's world anymore. Yes, of course they need to know the ever-evolving technical terms and words for the ever-evolving big tech industry. Today, Louise Reeves has bought her dongle, which magically connects our chapel to Wi-Fi through a sort of wafting, I think, wafting Wi-Fi, which is a wondrous thing. But this new world should surely not come at such a terrible price. All children would once have known that oak came from acorn. That was a given. And the blackberries actually grew on brambles. They didn't come from the supermarket. Which herbs were good to eat and which could be used as medicines, and which ones were poisonous. If a nettle stung you, you used a dock leaf to antidote the sting. But that's not seen as important in this high-tech, fast-paced life that is becoming more and more divorced from the natural world. I know I'm of the older generation now, but honestly, I would not swap my childhood of roaming, climbing, building dens, and generally making dens and mucking around in woods, which were near to our house, for the fiercely regulated lives of children today. The plethora of after-school clubs, all timetabled, the parental taxi service to and from these, the constant online social media, that can degenerate into abuse and trolling at the drop of a shift key. Our parents didn't know where we were half the time, or what we were up to. Yeah. But we're content as long as we showed up for meal times and for bedtimes and bath time. But now kids have to have mobiles, so the parents can keep track of where they are all the time. Great for emergencies, but not for privacy. We had such freedom. Freedom to experiment. Hello. He's listening. Yeah. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to push limits, especially that of gravity. Freedom to sit on the branch of a tree and just be. That is what all these lost words represent. The loss of that freedom and the inquisitiveness that goes with it. Tragically, despite this being the 21st century and not the Victorian era, there are still many kids who don't know anything about the beauty of the countryside, and who have now had words like acorn and adder dismissed from the vocabulary. Kids who live in damp, mouldy accommodation, whose parents can't afford to put much food on the table, and so rely on free school meals during term time. This is the era of energy poverty, bed poverty, food poverty, period poverty, or just appalling, unimaginable, drooling poverty. And that's where Send a Child to Hucklow comes in. Although started by Unitarians, it is a completely non-religious charity set up to give deprived children 5 days of carefree magic in the beautiful countryside of Great Hucklow in Derbyshire. Our very own trustee, Sue Katz, is one of the volunteer trustees of this charity, who works tirelessly to raise the finance and arrange the logistics of this worthy cause. So she's going to come up and say just a little bit more, because she can say better than I can.
Well, Claire asked me to say a few words because I am passionate about the Send a Child to Hucklow charity, but I have to correct her on something. It is still a totally Unitarian charity.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's just that we accept and welcome children from all faiths and none. And we're very strict about that. That's part of our Raymond Dutch, but we are still Unitarian.
Right.
Okay. So she asked me to say something, and I didn't know where to start. And there's so many important facts that I could tell you. For example, 63 years ago, the wonderful Reverend Peter Godfrey, supported by his colleague, the Reverend Glyn Bruce, wrote to the Inquirer, and they managed to raise £61 to take a group of disadvantaged children from Manchester to Hucklow. Since then, thousands of such children have had a week away from poverty, abuse, overwhelming caring responsibilities, inadequate living conditions or bullying. And during this time, they're enabled to run freely on grass in open air. This is something Claire's just referred to, because many of these children have never run on grass, which sounds incredible. They've never seen farm animals in life, and that's what they're able to do. This year, over 300 children will go on holiday at a cost of over £112,000. Oops, excuse me. And again, that money is raised from within our small denomination or by its members' volunteer fundraising. I could go on and on, but it's not the bold facts that move me about Senders Charity Hucklow. What I feel about Senders Charity Hucklow is summed up in a well-known benediction. May the deeds we do with our hands and the words we speak with our lips and the thoughts we think in our minds and the things we feel in our hearts be at all times worthy of the divine spirit within us. I've got you false word.
Thank you, Sue. I know you don't like public speaking, but you were the best person to speak. And I remember Sue and I were having a conversation about this. And she said to me that someone had said to her, really, Sue, is it fair to let these children see what they're missing? What does that say? Keep these kids stamped down in the bad conditions and poverty they belong in. Why show them that the world can be different, can be beautiful? If you don't give these kids something to aspire to, indeed something to hope for, a better future, a future they want to actually live in, then what's the point of getting up in the morning? What's the point of trying to educate kids who have no hope or evidence of anything better than the lives they are currently leading? Our closing words today are from the final message of Rob Burrows. He says, in a world full of adversity, we must still dare to dream. And we as adults must give children the experiences and the vocabulary to enable them to dream. And before we finish, there is just one more word that, although it's still in dictionaries, is under debate and under threat. And I worry about it. And that's the word woman. And this is where some people will throw their hands up and declare that I am transphobic. I'm not. I welcome the fact that trans people can now live their lives openly and be their absolute and true selves. And I also recognise that they have had a long and arduous fight to get where they are today. And this is a safe place where they can come and be exactly who they are. And women have had a long and arduous fight throughout the centuries to be seen, to be heard, and to be taken seriously. It's bandied about that women in this country were given the vote in 1918, along with working men. Some women were given the vote in 1918. Women over the age of 30 who were married and owned property were granted the vote. And this is really difficult for me to say, as it seemed reasonable for men to assume that she had probably been married long enough, and she was raising a family, no doubt, to realise, and these words really stick in my throat, that her husband's opinions were what mattered. So her vote was safe. She would do what he thought best. Exactly, exactly. It was 10 years later, in 1928, once men actually realised that the sky wouldn't fall down on their heads, that women of 21 and over actually granted a vote. And let us just look very briefly at two alternative names that are being discussed for women. Person with servants. And that's so cruel and thoughtless. Out there, there are thousands of women of all ages who each year have to undergo radical hysterectomies, removing their cervix, uterus, and often ovaries as well. For younger women, this can mean that they will never have the family that they wanted. And for older ones, they may not have the number of children that they hoped for. It can throw them into an early menopause, and believe me, menopause is not for wimps. And they come through this trauma to be slapped in the face by this facile renaming of women, which actually denies them all identity. And a second renaming, a person who menstruates, wow. Look around you today. I think you will realise that there are a lot of us who have endured that roller coaster ride called menopause, got the scars, thrown away the blister packs with painkillers, had the mood swings, thrown a few plates at the wall, that might just be me, and have come out the other side stronger, wiser, more or less sane, and thoroughly glad that that's all over. Don't ever make the mistake of calling any of us anything but woman. Person who menstruates denies us, the elders of the community, an identity, and we deserve better. And in this misogynistic, patriarchal society, I have never heard any debate over the renaming of men. What would you do? Call them a person with dangly bits? Or truly a person who has or has pending prostate problems? There's no debate there. So let us honour and preserve the word woman as we celebrate the fact that trans people can live their true lives. Words are so important. They can conjure up magic and beauty, and they can hurt and isolate groups of people. We heard how one person's words could condemn deprived children to never knowing anything better was out there. Let us all go forwards, using words not as weapons to harm others or deprive them of their futures or their identities. Let us use words with care and thoughtfulness to celebrate the natural world, to celebrate spiritual connections, and most of all, to celebrate each other. Amen. Our service next month, on Sunday, August the 4th, will be back to its normal time of 11 AM. In the chapel on the 17th of July, we have a conservation officer coming to talk to us about the planning application Margaret has worked tirelessly on. We want to level the floor and remove this back panel. to make it, because that's a health and safety problem for getting out of the chapel quickly. I know several of your chapels have helped fund some of this work, which is being sought to make this a much more diverse space for community use, organised by Rebecca and David of Flash Company Arts. So thank you for all of that. We still have many hurdles to jump through or crash through, but hopefully we will have some answers and plans shortly. And talking about funds, and we all hate talking about funds, but it is a necessary evil to renovate this space properly. Neil will pass the ball while we listen to some music called The Lost Words Blessings from The Lost Words. The closing words are from the final message sent by that lovely man, the rugby league legend and MND advocate, Rob Burrows, who died on June the 3rd, 2024. And these words he spoke demonstrate how powerful words are. I'm just a lad from Yorkshire who got to live out his dream of playing rugby league. As a father of 3 young children, I would never want any family to go through what my family has since my diagnosis. I hope I have left a mark on a disease. I hope it shows to live in the moment. I hope you find inspiration from the whole story. My final message to you is, whatever your personal battle, be brave and face it. Every single day is precious. Don't waste a moment. In a life full of adversity, we must still dare to dream.